What's up everyone, Sean Sheehan back here to talk about judging yet again. And today I want to talk about the 10-8s. And the reason I'm doing this is Michael Bisping made a video, I suppose around 2 weeks ago at this stage, talking about the 10-8s. And a few people tagged me in the video, asked me for my thoughts. And I gave my thoughts in a few of the replies, but I thought I'd make a bit of a video to talk maybe a little bit more in depth. I thought Michael did a great job. He started off the conversation really well. And I'm just going to go a little bit further and look at the criteria for the answer to the question that Michael posed, and that he went maybe halfway towards answering in that video. But the first thing he did, and the best thing he did, was that sheet of paper he had in his hand. So let's do the same, and we'll all get that sheet of paper in our hands right now. Let's go to Google and look up MMA judging criteria. See this here? Google that, and you click on this one, abcboxing.com, MMA judging criteria scoring approved August 2nd, 2016. Click on that. If you're on a phone or whatever, it might open up. It might download, but make sure you have the one that says judging scoring criteria approved August 2nd, 2016. Now, if you want to go through every bit of that criteria, the effective striking, grappling, and all of that, I made a video over on YouTube. All you have to do, again, put in MMA judging criteria. Here's me a bit thinner talking about everything, every part of the MMA judging criteria. So I link that in the description below. So go and look at that. But what I want to look at here now is the 10-8s, right? So I've gone down to the 10-8 part of it here. And before we get into it, this is how much you need to read, because I don't want anyone getting, going mad saying I have to read 50 pages or anything for the 10-8s. So you have one paragraph there, and then you have just this, one more page, okay? So not too much, not madness at all, right? So I'm going to start at this bit. These three words here: impact, dominance, duration. Now, for impact, just to make it easy for everyone, we're going to call this damage, right? So damage, dominance, duration. D, D, D. So we have three Ds there, right? That's important. Very important. Those three Ds. So let's talk about the first one first. Impact or damage. A judge shall assess if a fighter impacts their opponent significantly in the round, even though they may have not dominated the action. Impact includes visible evidence such as swelling and lacerations. Impact should also be assessed when a fighter's actions use striking and or grappling lead to diminish. I can't read if everyone, if anyone watching this knows me in the past. But diminishing of the opponent's energy, confidence, abilities, and spirit. All of these come as a direct result of impact. When a fighter is impacted with strikes by the lack of control and or ability, this can create defining moments in the round that shall be assessed with great value. So this is a big right hand hurts someone, a big leg kick that they fall back and it hurts them really badly. Impact, more, we know what the word impact means. If elbow someone and they get cut and they start bleeding, that's big impact. So anyone who's watched the other video knows more impact, more scoring, more heavily weighed. Okay, fair enough. We know what impact is. Dominance. And as MMA is an offensive-based sport, dominance of a round can be seen in striking when the losing fighter is forced to continue to defend, with no counters or reaction taken when openings present themselves. Dominance in the grappling phase can be seen by fighters taking dominant positions in the fight and utilizing those positions to attempt fight-ending submissions or attacks. Merely holding a dominant position shall not be a primary factor in assessing dominance. What the fighter does with those positions must be assessed. That's another obviously big thing. Just being in the mount or inside control is not good enough. It's what you do in that position that counts to scoring and to scoring of dominance, or to talking about dominance. Okay, so if you're in the mount for 4 minutes of a round and you land 100 strikes, big strikes, you have a lot of dominance there, right? And you have a lot of impact as well. We'll get to that more in a second. So that's dominance. Duration. Duration is defined by the time spent in one fighter's effectively attacking, controlling, and impacting their opponent, while the opponent offers little to no offensive output. A judge shall assess duration by recognizing the relative time in a round when one fighter takes and maintains full control of the effective offense. This can be assessed both standing and grounded. So basically, the amount of time that you have dominance and the amount of time you're winning the round. So those are the three things first, and we'll get into reading the rest of that 10-8 part in a second. So this is the crux of a 10-8, right? You get to the end of a round, fighter A versus fighter B, and fighter A wins that round. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows they won that round, right? And then you say, was that a 10-8 or was that a 10-9? Right? Was that a 10-8 or was that a 10-9? That's the question in your head at the end of the round. What should you do at this point? What you do at this point, every single time you go to your 3Ds, right? Your impact, your dominance, and your duration. Impact obviously being damage. You go to the 3 of them. And here is what you do when you go to the 3 of them, okay? Here's what you do. So we'll go back to our criteria and we look now. So a 10-8 round. A 10-8 round is a round where a fighter wins by a large margin, obviously. So that isn't enough to say. But here is what we shall do. A 10-8 round in MMA is not the most common score a judge would enter, but it is absolutely essential to the evolution of the sport and the fairness to the fighters that judges understand and effectively utilise the 10-8. 10-8 score does not require a fighter to dominate their opponent for 5 minutes of a round. The score of a 10-8 is utilised by the judge when the judge sees verifiable actions on the part of either fighter. The judge shall always give a 10-8 when the judge has established that one fighter has dominated the action of the round, had duration of the domination, and impacted their opponent. Okay? So, always, right? Always. Duration, 1D. Domination, 2Ds. Impact or damage, that's 3Ds. So, always a 10-8 when you have the 3 of those Ds. So you come to the end of that round, is it a 10-9 or is it a 10-8? Right? You come to the end of that round. Well, did they damage the opponent? Yes. Did they have duration? Did they win 4 minutes of the round? Yes. Did they dominate for those 4 minutes in the mount, landing big strikes or inside control, landing big strikes, or on the feet, landing big strikes? Yes. That's a 10-8 every single time. I'll go back to the criteria. Look what it says. Always a 10-8 when you have D, domination. Sorry, I went all of it. Domination, duration, and impact, which we will call damage. When you have those 3Ds, always a 10-8. Now, let's go to the next part. A judge must consider giving the score of a 10-8 when a fighter shows dominance in that round, even though no impactful scoring against the opponent was achieved. So dominance with no impact. So that's 1D. You don't have the impact, which is the damage. You don't have that, but you have dominance. So they will consider it. They don't have to give it. It's not always given. You don't have all 3Ds, right? So MMA is an offensive-based sport. No scoring is given for defensive maneuvers. Using smart, tactical, sound defensive maneuvers allows the fighter to stay in the fight to be competitive. Now, this is a little bit of a different part. The dominance of a round can be seen in striking when the losing fighter continually attempts to defend with no counters or reaction taken when openings present themselves. Dominance in the grappling phase can be seen by fighters taking dominant positions in the fight and utilizing those positions to attempt to fight any submissions or attacks. A fighter has little to no offensive output during the 5-minute round. It should be normal for a judge to consider awarding the losing fighter 8 points instead of 9. Right. Now, the next part. Judges must consider giving a 10-8 when a fighter impacts their opponent significantly in a round, even though they do not dominate the action. So, you can have this 1D, impact, damage, and you can not dominate it and still get a 10-8, but it's to be considered. Considered, okay? Not always. See above, when you have all 3Ds, always given, right? So I will explain this further in a second. So when a fighter is hurt with strikes showing a lack of ability or control, these can be defining moments in a fight. If a judge sees that a fighter has been significantly damaged in a round, the judge should consider a 10-8. So the crux of that is there, right? You have your 3Ds, okay? If you have 2 of those Ds, you consider it. If you have 1 of those Ds, you consider it. If you have 3 of those Ds, it's a 10-8 always. And that's it. That's it. That's the end of my explanation here. Dominance, duration, damage. If you have the 3 of those things, it's a 10-8. If you don't, it might be a 10-8. And that is what we should have in our mind every time there is a round we think we consider to be a 10-8. Every time the commentators look at a round and they see, well, is that a 10-8? There's a discussion. Is it a 10-8? 3D should be mentioned every single time, because that is in the rules. I pulled it up here, written in front of everyone. We just looked at it. That is the rules of MMA. Domination, duration, and damage. And don't forget it.